Hello everyone and welcome back. Today's video is short and sweet on the most competitive races in the Senate this year. Right now the Senate is split 50-50, and so any fluctuations one way or another would lead to a shift in the power, or balance of power rather, in the Senate. And so these are the important and crucial races in the Senate this year: Nevada, Arizona, Montana, Texas, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Texas is the most recent one that I've seen been added to this race. Texas previously wasn't on this map, and so it's really interesting to see it be added, and we're going to look at that further, looking at why this race, or why these races are important, and why many people are saying that this is going to lead to the Republicans having a majority in the Senate, is because the Democrats, they have these solid seats that they're definitely not going to win. I mean, definitely not going to lose, but then they also have Montana and West Virginia that they're probably going to lose. So West Virginia is Joe Manchin. He's a Democrat, or a dino as many call him or accuse him of being, and so that he's not going to run for re-election, and so that seat is most likely going to be won by a Republican. Well, not even most likely, it's going to be won by a Republican. It's a solid R state, expected for West Virginia. Joe Manchin was an anomaly coming out of that state. Then Montana, Jon Tester, he's the incumbent, but obviously Montana is such a solid red state that that's very surprising that he was even there for as long as he's been in there, and so he's probably going to lose that race to Matt Sheehy. We have a video on that if you'd like to watch that as well. They don't have any that are like lean Democrat or toss-up that Republicans currently hold, so it's only a race for Democrats to lose at this current point in time. So looking at the Senate map, we can just fill out most of these states. Oh, not Montana. We can fill out most of these states that are going to be obvious wins or loses, one way or another. Most of them, obviously, again, I'm not going to like really shade them too much or like care about that at this current point in time, because again, this isn't all that important. So we go through these. Obviously, these are all the West Coast, we know. Maine also is the current incumbent, Angus King. He is a independent, but he caucuses with Democrats, so it's going to be a Democrat win over there. And then Texas, I really don't see what they're looking at here. So before we fill this in, Republican, which is my inclination, let's look at the Real Clear Politics polling on Texas to see if it really is a competitive race, because I'm pretty skeptical. Listen, Ted Cruz has been in the Senate for so many years now that I'd really be hard-pressed to see him losing this race. Emerson's is pretty, and Morning Consult as well. Oh, Morning Consult shows him up. Still, I don't really see it happening. If you look at the Real Clear Politics polling, do they even have a Senate poll on the specific Texas race? I'm not sure, because it's mostly the swing states, so I'm not sure they're going to have one. Or I guess this is, let's see, right here. They showed him up 4, so I think that's a good enough leaning for him at this point in time. The Democrats of the GNC have been pouring a lot of money into this race with already, if you are signed up for the GNC emails or the DSCC emails, you know that they're pouring so much money into this race. And so possibly with increased funding, with Ted Cruz being unpopular per se, with the populations of liberal cities in Texas like Austin increasing, we could see a shift in this race, but I really don't see it for 2024, maybe 2026 or 2028 with future Senate races, but I really don't see it here. So I think we can say, and rightfully cast Texas as a red state, but let's just make it likely, or maybe even lean, but still, I don't see it happening for Republicans losing that race. Now, we shift over to Nevada. Listen, Jackie Rosen is up like 11 points at this point in time, so this is going to be a likely Democrat race. We made a video on that pretty recently on her race, and it's really exponentially increased her margin of error win over her opponent, Sam Brown, since Kamala became the nominee. So she's going to win that race. Oh, sorry, forgot about Hawaii right here. And then Arizona is going to be Kari Lake versus the Democrat, the Kristen Sinema, who is the current incumbent, who is also a pretty she's also a dino, I guess, with Joe Manchin in that same category, and independent, but caucuses with Democrats, and Gallego is probably going to win this race. Gallego is a pretty popular candidate in Arizona, and the DNC, again, has been flushing a lot of money into that race. Republicans aren't too excited about Kari Lake since she won and lost the gubernatorial race in 2022, and so they're not as interested in pouring money into that race that they're probably going to lose. So again, a likely Democrat win over there. So in Wisconsin, Tammy Baldwin is running for re-election. She's not all that popular, but I also don't see her being not popular enough for her to lose this election. She's probably going to win that as well. If we just go to Wisconsin here, where is it? Okay, great. Yep, Baldwin this is her race to lose, honestly. If she loses, it's going to be pretty interesting. I don't see her losing this race. But if we just look at the Real Clear Politics polling average, yep, listen, New York Times Standard has her up 7%. New York Times Standard is a pretty, 7%. New York Times Standard is a pretty reliable poll. Also, these were done fairly recently, and so I think that she's probably going to win this race as well. And if we look recently, the polling has shifted a bit. She's gotten less of a win, but still, I think that as time passes, Wisconsin people. Also, I don't think these polls take into consideration as much mail-in ballots, and the mail-in ballots are definitely going to help her as well. So I think that Baldwin is probably going to win this race additionally. But that's going to be a much tighter one. Okay, Michigan, that's Stabenow is not running for re-election in Michigan, so it's two new candidates, Slotkin and Rogers. I think Elisa Slotkin is probably going to win this race as well. As we see the polling, it seems to be favoring her pretty across the board, except for Atlas Intel. But again, I don't think that's as reliable as the other polls seem to be having a better consensus. Also, Michigan Democrats have been more excited about Kamala Harris entering the race, not as much as Nevada Democrats, but with her entering the race, her being better on the Gaza issue for the large population of Arab Americans in Michigan, I think that's going to help Slotkin a bit as well. And Rogers isn't as strong of a candidate. They could have put up someone much stronger. I think they learned a bit of their lesson from 2022, putting up extremely weak candidates, but still not as well this time around. Next, Pennsylvania. So Bob Casey is running for re-election in the state of Pennsylvania against McCormick. So funny story on McCormick, if you're paying attention during the 2022 elections, he was supposed to be the Republican nominee, but then Donald Trump just decided that he liked Dr. Oz for some reason, so McCormick got pushed aside, but now he's running for election this time around. He's a strong candidate. Should have been the pick in 2022. Could have probably won against Fetterman in 2022, but against Bob Casey, I don't think he's going to be able to win that race. Bob Casey is pretty popular. Also, Democrats in Pennsylvania have been on a winning streak with John Fetterman and Josh Shapiro, and overall 3 congressional races in Pennsylvania flipped in 2022 over to the Democrats. So overall, we're going to have a much better time in Pennsylvania than they did in 2022. And I think everything is showing in favor of Bob Casey. He's probably going to win this race, though not saying it's not going to be tight, but still saying that's going to be enough to push Bob Casey over the edge here in Pennsylvania. The important and very crucial swing state of Pennsylvania might have had. Now we have narrowed it down to the 2 extremely close Senate races, Montana and Ohio. Let's talk about Ohio first of all, where Sherrod Brown is seeking re-election against Moreno. Ohio, we know, is a state that votes pretty reliably for the Republicans in presidential and Senate elections. J.D. Vance won there in 2022 against Tim Ryan. Tim Ryan has been on a losing streak with the presidential and the Senate elections. So, we have precedent there favoring the Republicans, but Brown is a pretty likable candidate in Ohio. He's also played it very smooth in these last few months with Joe Biden being on the ticket. He really was pushing for him to get out since Kamala Harris has been in there, not saying many two things about her that's too positive or is going to be too controversial. He's really going to the center recently. And so I think that he's going to be able to pull through with this. Not saying that Moreno isn't a good candidate, because he is. Again, Republicans learned their lesson from 2022, but still I think that Brown is probably going to win this race, and all of the polling and major pollsters show that as well. Again, it's going to be a very tight race, but still not one they don't think Democrats will be able to win without. And then last but not least, as we see here, this is a 40, if you count the 2 swing states here, it's a 49 to 50 race right now. Right? 49 to 50. This is extremely important which way Montana swings. If the Democrats win it, then it's theirs, and if they win the presidency as well, it's their Senate. If the Republicans win it, then no matter who wins the election, it's the Republicans. And so Montana is very important, but unfortunately for the Democrats, it seems to be pointing in Tim Sheehy's direction. So if you look at the polling there, if I'm able to find Montana on this list, I don't know why it wouldn't be part of the swing states there. Okay, I selected blind list now. If it loads now, okay, great. So we see up Sheehy's doing very well in Montana. It's honestly concerning for Jon Tester. He's been there for a while. He's one of the more likable candidates in the Senate, but as the current polling shows, Montana obviously is a very far Republican state, and so it was a surprise that Jon Tester was even there for as long as he has been. And also, new polling from the Cook Political Report says that Montana race is shifting towards Matt Sheehy, the Republican candidate. He is a military veteran. It's been shifting more and more towards Sheehy. If we look at the polls in in like earlier races or even like a few months ago, it was pretty neck and neck, but recently she has been gaining some ground there as the RNC is pouring more money into that race. So I think Montana is definitely going to swing over in their direction. Possibly a tilt red, but I think more so it's going to be a likely red race in Montana there. And so there you have it. It's going to be 51-49 for the Republicans. So no matter if Kamala Harris is able to sneak in a victory in November, it's going to be the Republican Senate, I believe. And let me know if your projections differ. Again, we do have the Texas, which wasn't on this map a while ago as a swing state, but if Democrats are somehow going to kick Ted Cruz out of there, then they would have majority if Kamala Harris wins, but otherwise it's going to be the Republican Senate. So let me know if you disagree with any states on this map here, if you disagree with the blue wall here, if you think it has ramifications on the presidential level, and let me know what videos you want to see next.